The biggest barrier to charging more, it's not your clients, it's you.
That's Casey Brown, founder of Boost Pricing. From price increases to negotiations, Casey is changing the way agencies perceive price, value, and market power. Casey has helped thousands of companies generate over $1 billion in profits. And today she's revealing how agencies can use psychology to make clients want to pay more. But how does she do it?
I've worked with agency owners for years, and the one mistake I see them making over and over again is
In this episode, you'll learn how to master pricing conversations with clients.
when clients tell you your price is too high or they can get the same thing for less. What I recommend you do is,
How to tell when a client's low budget is real.
if you've proposed 12 and they only have 10, what doesn't fit in the monthly services for $10,000 that would fit at 12? Make them choose between saving $2,000 a month and giving up this part of the service. Sometimes when you force that choice, $2,000 magically appear in the budget.
You'll also learn how to break free from the fear-based pricing mindset.
Fear of losing the business tells you to lower the price. But while customers tell you that they need a lower price, what they're really looking for is
And a hot take you might not be expecting.
getting a yes to every proposal isn't the flex you think it is.
Hey, let's kick things right off here. I'm excited for this conversation. What are the biggest mistakes that you see agencies making when it comes to pricing?
One of the biggest mistakes I see from the years of working with agency owners is a problem I call pre-discounting. What pre-discounting is essentially sticker shocking ourselves out of the right price out of the gate before we've ever even presented it to a customer. In other words, we figure out how much time of different people on our team, how much time we need from Jeremy and how much time from Sue and how much time from Joe and the different skill levels, but also the materials and the subscriptions and everything that goes into an engagement. And we add all of that up, applying our normal markups to rate sheets. And when we get to the subsequent number, we kind of panic. So we say, oh gosh, I don't think the client can pay us $12,000 a month. I think their budget's only 10. And we start sort of talking ourselves out of the price we really deserve because we have pre-discounted. We've operated from a place of fear when it comes to the pricing. And so instead of putting $12,000 in front of the customer, we put a pre-discounted price of $10,000 in front of the customer, and then we give them their chance to beat us up.
I feel like I've seen this movie live. Tell me about the 65% rule. What is it, and why is it important? Why should people care about it? Make sure to subscribe so you can get the latest strategies to help your agency thrive delivered straight to your feed.
This rule, so to speak, came from a conversation I had at an event with an agency owner. She has said one of her business coaches had taught her that once your win rate goes above 65%, that it's time to start looking at your pricing and reevaluating whether your pricing needs an adjustment. And the concept of this makes a lot of sense to me, that once you're winning, quote unquote, too much, in other words, when too many of your customers are saying yes to you, that's a signal to you that you might be underpricing. Now, it feels counterintuitive because we all love to have a customer say yes to us and we hate to have a customer say no. But if every single customer you ever proposed to said yes, then that means you're leaving money on the table. So you don't want 100% win rate. You don't want 0% win rate. The question is what kind of win rate do we want? What do we want to aim for? And there's nothing super magical about 65%. That tells me her mentor advised her that if you're winning 2 out of every 3 deals, that's a good thing to shoot for. Whether that line is at 50% for you or 80%, the idea is to be looking at it and tracking and measuring your win rate over time as an early warning signal that your pricing might be getting out of whack relative to the market.
I think everyone wants to maximize, the profit that they're getting out of the deals that they're signing. We're not all psychologists. Talk us a little bit around through the psychology of getting people to agree to higher prices.
It's a great question, and I will answer it, but I want to inject an answer to a question you didn't ask, because psychology doesn't just affect the buyer. It doesn't just affect the customer. There's also a lot of psychology at work on the side of the seller. And here's what I mean by that. Most pricing decisions in the world are made from a place of fear, not from a place of confidence. We're pricing not to lose the work, not to lose the deal, not to have the customer say no to us, rather than pricing to win based confidently on our value. And so Pricing is largely driven by self-limiting beliefs, attitudes, habits, and fears, much more so than logic, data, reason, even value. And so the first psychology of pricing that we have to tackle as the seller is our own and our own fear and self-limiting beliefs. To the second part of the question, the one that you did ask, what about the customer? Well, there's a number of things going on the customer side when it comes to psychology. One of them is just sort of understanding human nature and how that drives negotiations with customers. In other words, sometimes we'll propose a price to a customer. Let's say we had the courage to ask them the full $12,000, and the customer says that's too expensive. I only have a budget of 10. The reality is that customer might have a budget of 12 or even 15, but it is human nature to try to hold on to resources and save money. And so customers will employ, as everybody in the world does from time to time, they will employ strategies and tactics to try to get your products and services for less, because then that $2, $3, $5,000 they can spend on something else in their budget. And so one element of customer behavior and the psychology and the human nature, the role that those play in our buying behavior is customers will try to get a better deal. It doesn't mean our prices are too high.
The first answer to the question that I didn't ask you, it sounded like you were speaking through my soul, uh, because we've all felt that fear. So how can people like me move beyond that fear of losing a deal because of pricing?
Well, it's a great question, and there's a number of different things we can do. So how can we, as the sellers, face that fear and make sure that we're winning more deals at higher prices? How can we absorb and recognize that we're going to feel that fear, but not let it stop us? One way that we can do that is through better preparation. Very frankly, pricing is an area of fear for most everyone that sells. If you lined up 100 people who sell, whether they're agency owners or salespeople, and you ask them their favorite thing about selling, I bet you my house, 0 of them would say, I love when I get to tell them what it costs. That isn't the part that people love. And yet, it's not a place we spend time and energy to get better at or to be better prepared for, because it's so uncomfortable. We spend a lot of time on our messaging and our value proposition and connecting with customers and understanding their problems and proposing solutions that address it. But the more prepared we are for the pricing portion of the conversation, the better that conversation will go. And here's an example of a few things that I think agencies and salespeople on their teams can do in preparation for those conversations. I love to ask the question, what are you terrified the customer will say? What's the worst case scenario of the customer's response to your pricing proposal? What questions are they going to ask you? What objections are they going to say to you about your pricing? Think those things through, and then think through and prepare answers to those objections. And then, and this is the important bit, practice it. Say it out loud, say it to the dog, the kids, the mirror, your neighbor, your boss, a friend, because we've got to put it in our own words and make it very natural for us. And when we've put in the effort to think through both the messaging and the preparation for what are those objections I might hear, what are the things they might throw back at me, then when we're in the moment and we're actually having that conversation with a customer, rather than spinning out in fear, we can stay grounded and present because we've done the hard work of preparing for the worst case scenario. That's one key to dealing with the fear of pricing when it comes to communicating that and not operating from fear.
I wanted to go back to this idea around pricing and people undervaluing themselves and their services and doing it sort of naturally. Is there a way to identify if a company is undervaluing their services? Can you diagnose that?
I will share that I have never one time ever, not in the history of 25 years geeking out about pricing, nor in 15 years in business as offering my services directly as a consultant and a trainer, have ever found a company that wasn't undervaluing themselves in some way. So the diagnosis is pretty clear. Like, you are underpricing, at least in some areas of the business. And in the agency world, in professional services spaces, where what is being provided is very often an expression of your personal talent and creativity and expertise. There are a couple of reasons that shows up even more in the agency space than it does in many other businesses. because what you're selling is not some widget, it's yourself. It's your own expertise. And so when customers say that's too expensive, what the agency owner sometimes hears is, you aren't worth it. Not, I don't have the budget, or I'm not sure about this, suite of services you're providing, but you, Sarah or Joe or Bill, aren't worth it. You haven't convinced me of your talent and your creativity and your expertise. And nobody likes to feel that way. And that causes many agency owners to underprice out of the gate. That's just one of a suite of, again, sort of psychographic commonalities I see in the creative space that cause folks to underprice. One other is almost no one that runs an agency got into the field because they love to sell and they love to negotiate pricing. They got into the field to pursue their passion and their expertise, and selling is a part of the job. It's part of the responsibility of an agency. You've got to sell to be in business. And so it's, for some agency owners and sales people that sell their services, it's a sort of a necessary evil. And so they kind of want to get it over with so they can get back to the fun stuff. And that causes them to under-prepare and accept lower prices than they deserve because they just want to get that uncomfortable thing over with. And the last thing I'll mention on this front is that even the relationship with the very idea of sales is very uncomfortable for a lot of agency owners. If I called them a salesperson, some of them would act like I called them a name, a dirty word, because they have a kind of an uncomfortable relationship with sales, like it's something icky or dirty or gross, or somehow sullies their art and their creative pursuit. And I believe selling is nothing more than serving. It's helping people get what they want. And if you are an agency that provides a service that your customer needs, then it is serving and helping to give them the information they need to buy from you. So I think some of the answer is really reframing how we feel about the whole entire process, operating from a place of service and a place of confidence rather than a place of avoidance and fear.
So I hear you loud and clear saying the problem's with you. It's not your product or service necessarily. And
generally, yes. If you have a product or service that nobody wants, price is not your problem. Fix your quality. But if you have a compelling product or service, if you have most people that are in my audiences or our clients or people that very likely are listening to your podcast tend to be best in class and better in class providers in their industry. They have something really compelling and special and valuable. And then the question is, are they getting paid for that? Or are they accepting mediocre pay for excellent work because they're relentlessly compared against inferior competitors?
Let me ask you about existing customers. And because I feel that a lot of organizations, so intuitively I may be wrong, but I feel a lot of organizations sort of discount or don't properly think about pricing when it comes to existing customers because they're easy, they're already there, and let's not touch them. It's all working, and we don't want them to leave, so you got to keep them happy. So how, in your expert opinion, should people be approaching pricing when it comes to their existing customers?
When it comes to existing customers, pricing is often left alone for too long. And when we do touch it, when we do decide to increase it, we do so too cautiously. So that's my way of saying I agree with you 100%. And I think there's lots of reasons people don't want to rock the boat, largely rooted in fear, because this is a bird in hand. We already have this revenue. It's coming in. Let's not mess with it. I would like to offer as a counterpoint for anyone who tends to operate this way, that it's almost always your existing customer base that is the most convinced of your value because they're the ones that experience it. Trying to go communicate your value and get customers, prospect to pay you a higher price is often challenging because they don't know you yet. They don't trust you yet. They don't understand your process and your service and your excellence. The customers that already buy from you experience day in and day out your quality and your excellence. That does not mean they're going to take a price increase as good news. They're not going to greet it with joy and thanks. They're going to grumble and complain, and some of them are going to threaten to, put you out to bid. Pricing is never going to be a good news conversation from the customer's perspective. But it does not mean they won't pay it.
If this video helped you, make sure to subscribe for more in-depth content that can transform how you grow your business.
Consider that customers complaining about price, just like losing business sometimes on price, is a necessary part of a good price strategy. The same is true for sort of complaining and grumbling. And it is almost certain that if you do a price increase, some of your customers will not say one word. Some of your customers will grumble and stay anyway, and a very small percentage of them will leave. If none of them leave, you didn't ask for enough. But a few of them will leave. Most of them will stay and stay quiet or stay and grumble. And I'll let you know that the grumbling is just noise. And by that, I mean the following. There's the idea of noisy data, where some pollution gets into your data and corrupts the signal, right? Some noise creeps in. When we have a customer say yes to us or no to us, I buy or I don't buy, that's data. The complaining that goes along with it, that's just noise. That's noise corrupting the signal. The signal is I stay with you or I leave. So when 96% of your customers stay after a price increase, it doesn't matter how many of those complained about the process. The data is the check, shows up in your bank account or it doesn't. So this is a sort of a long way around to, it is understandable that we don't like to poke the bear because we're afraid of upsetting, a status quo that's working. But that means we're accepting the status quo of underpricing and that there's a lot of unexercised pricing power with existing customers who already value us.